Welcome to the PowerFactor Show.
The bandwidth for this episode of the PowerFactor Show is brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network. FIREARMSradio.tv.
Sponsored by Taylor Freelance, Rainier Ballistics, Hodgson Powders, and JPL Precision.
Hi, I'm Doug, and welcome to the PowerFactor Show. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about my match last weekend at the Benelli Rockcastle Tactical Shotgun match in Park City, Kentucky. I went back there with Robert Wright from R&R Targets, and the two of us had a chance to run through 18 stages of all shotgun, using birdshot, slugs, and buckshot. In an all-shotgun match, unlike a three-gun match, you really use that one gun the whole time, and it gives you a lot of time to really concentrate on that one gun, and I really enjoyed it. Here's some pictures from the match. Take a look and see what you think. Bye. This is stage 5. Okay, on stage 5, I'm standing on top of a bucket and a platform. My first run, I ended up with one shot that I missed, had to make up. My second, you had to run this twice. Best score was the one recorded. I shoot the same thing again, except this time I missed 3 shots. I have to go back and make them. Turned out I had the wrong choke in there. I thought I'd switch to IC. I'd switch to IM, which is not good. So, this is a gun camera film of the same thing. I believe this is the second one.
Give me a nod when you're ready. Shoot ready. Stand by.
And then she doesn't have the timer on. Just turn the timer back on.
Shoot ready.
There we go.
Stand by.
All right, so you'll see. I have to re-engage 3 of the targets, which
Two crappy runs.
didn't help at all. This is when I went to change chokes. I went to change back into my other choke, and I thought I had an IM in there. I thought I'd switch from mod, which I normally shoot, to improve mod, or to actually IC. And when I went in to put it away, I noticed that the IC was still in my choke case. Bye shotgun. Okay, this is stage 6. Started out in a golf cart. You had to shoot 3 close steel targets, and then you had 6 far out to 100-yard slug targets. So it was an empty gun start, so naturally I pulled the trigger without anything in there. I had a few hiccups on this stage, mainly because I didn't have the gun shouldered up good. I was kind of sitting back against the chair in the golf cart, and I didn't really have the gun tight against my shoulder, so I'd kind of caused the gun to malfunction a little bit. Thought I did pretty good. Step outside and have to re-engage. That's not bad. One shot offhand out to 100 yards. I ran out of slugs, so I switched to my other magazine. The second magazine, I have 3 birdshot, actually 4 birdshot on top. You'll see I fire the extra round, then I go back and re-engage with slugs again. Look at that, 100 yards, bam, on the money. Not bad for offhand.
5204.
That was a pretty good stage for me. Okay, here's the same. This is a video from a third party. This is actually Robert shooting my pictures. Like I said, I'm not holding the gun real tight against my shoulder, so it's causing the gun to not cycle properly. I'm using the wheels. You weren't allowed to have the gun touch anywhere on the cart, so I'm using the wheel, but just bracing my elbow against it. I should have probably braced up against the side of the cart, and I would have got a little bit more support shooting slugs, but I didn't think of it at the time. So this middle one on the left-hand side is the only one I had trouble with. Seems like I got the long ones no problem. I don't know why. This is stage 7. It's one where you run through the woods, and this is only a partial of the video, but you can kind of see the terrain there at Rockcastle is they use a lot of just wild terrain. You just run around out in the woods, and it's kind of fun, really. They put the targets out there, and you're kind of out in the woods. This is really enjoyable. This is stage 8, and stage 8 you got to shoot twice. So there's 9 targets. It's what they call trail ready, so you're holding the gun in your strong hand, and it's empty. Magazine's full, but the chamber's empty. And I thought I ran that pretty good. There's 2 shooting positions on the left and on the right. You can go either way.
854? 854.
Okay, so there's my first run.
I hesitated a little.
I thought my first run was pretty solid.
I felt it, you know, kind of a...
Here's my second run.
Feels too light.
You actually notice I shoot the birds a little faster this time, but I have to make a makeup shot on one of the poppers that I missed in the first time around. I thought I did it a lot faster this time. I shot the poppers faster too, but I had to make a makeup shot. I still ended up with the overall faster time on my second run. So trail ready, gun is in the strong hand, empty chamber. This is my first run. Bring it back over. You notice how as soon as my foot comes into the box, as soon as I lift my back foot up, I start shooting. It's the only way to get it shot fast is to have the gun ready when you come into the box, and then as soon as you lift your foot up and you're completely in the box, start shooting. I shoot a little bit faster this time. Have the one makeup shot, still not too bad. This is stage 9, and this is the slug portion of stage 9, and then we go in and start shooting bird shot. And then unfortunately on this stage part of my belt fell off and I was dragging it along, but they had a mulligan available on this match, so I used my mulligan for this stage, and when I came back I shot it much better.
Stand by.
This is stage 10, and what this is a kind of a left-right setup where you have targets left and right, but they're blocked so you can only see them in certain places. So you have to kind of pay attention to what you're doing so you don't miss any. There's a reload right there. And make one makeup shot there. Not too bad. I had a fairly decent time on that one.
So clear. Flag. I got it. Concussed a little? Little.
The R was complaining about the comps on these R&R guns. Hey, this is stage 15. This is my second run on stage 15. My first run was actually better, but for some reason I didn't have the camera on, so this is my second run. And you'll notice you got to go left and then back to the right, so you got to come into a little triangular shooting area. I end up missing 2 shots and having to do makeups, and then on this side, for some reason, I end up with a quick jam. It's actually a gun went in the battery, but for some reason when I pulled the trigger, nothing happened, so I just racked it, started over again. I wasn't sure if it was the gun or me, but I racked it anyway to start over.
938.
984.
984. 984.
That happens sometimes. Okay, this is stage 16, and this is 2 different strings. So you shoot poppers on the left-hand side, so I believe there's 9 poppers on the left, and then you go back and there's another string of 6 plates on the other side. So you shot once, then they restart the timer and you shoot again. Now I kind of make a whooping noise there because when I shot the last popper on the left-hand side, I shot it and it didn't fall down. But I kind of waited a second to see what would happen, and it fell really slowly. So instead of pulling the trigger again, I was sure I had a pretty good shot on it, but it was set heavy, so it felt really slow. And I had one makeup shot on this side.
482. We're clear. Set him up.
Tim will be the shooter.
Not too bad, anyway. It was around 10 seconds total for both strings added together.
I said 4. 542.
Okay, this is stage 18.
Safety's on.
And in this stage, they call this the bathhouse. So you're by a concrete block wall. There's a concrete block wall behind you. So you're kind of going back and forth between kind of a little tunnel between the two. This is slugs and birdshot.
I'm going to shoot bird.
And this is one of the stages where I made a bad plan. I should have started on my weak hand. You have to shoot strong hand and weak hand. I should have shot weak hand first, but I decided not to. I went to my strong hand first. Another empty gun start that I forgot to pull the trigger on. I was getting pretty good at that by the end of this. I switched to slugs. I shoot slugs out here. And you had to lean out pretty far to get this, so it was a little bit of a difficult shot. They kind of made it that way on purpose. Then you switch to your weak hand, so now I'm shooting slugs weak-handed. And I switched to bird shot. It took me a long time to switch to the bird shot. It just was not good. I should have done it the other direction so that when I made the mag change, I was making it strong-handed. It would have gone a lot faster. Robert, who won that stage, beat me by about 12 seconds on this one, which is a lot. Well, I hope you enjoyed the match. I had a good time. It's a lot of fun. It was a long, hot 2 days, but we made it through. And like I said, Robert Wright, who shot with me, he came in first place. I came in second place. I could have beat him, but I screwed up a few stages, and his plan was better than mine. I was happy because I shot the plans that I came up with, but unfortunately, in a couple of cases, the plans weren't that good. So my own fault. But we enjoyed it, had a good time, and if you get a chance to shoot an all-gun shotgun match, go ahead and do it. I think you'll come out a better shotgun shooter at the end. If you want to get a hold of us, you can always email us at powerfactorshow@gmail.com. You can also find us at powerfactorshow.com, facebook.com/powerfactorshow, and youtube.com/powerfactorshow. Thanks for watching.
Hey PowerFactor fans, when I was doing my in-depth review of my shooting bench where I do my reloading, I mentioned a burn rate chart, and somebody who wasn't really familiar with burn rate charts, that is powder burn rate charts, had a question about it, and I thought since I kind of glossed over it in the episode, I would cover it in a separate little segment. And what the burn rate charts are is it's printed. I've printed it out. Steve probably has it on his phone. But what it is it shows popular powders based on how quickly they burn. Now, burn rates are kind of variable. I mean, if you get 3 burn rate charts produced by 3 different sources, they won't, even if they have exactly the same powders listed, they won't always have them in exactly the same order. So that tells you that it's not, set in stone. But what it can do, especially in these trying times when it's hard to get powder, hard to get components, is if you look and see on the burn rate chart where your powder of choice falls, a good substitute powder would be the one that's right above it or right below it, because the burn rates are very similar. So for instance, my powder of choice today for my 45 ACP loads is Hodgdon clays, and I happen to have a supply of it. I don't have any issues with it. But when I was out of it, then I had to find something, geez, I don't want to go to something with a completely different burn rate, where instead of using 4.2 grains or 4.3 grains, I have to use 6.2 grains or 6.3 grains. That would be a slower burning powder. To get a similar velocity, you need more of a slower burning powder. And so what I try to do is generally use a powder that's fast enough that I can make my desired power factor without using any more of the powder than necessary. Now, as an example, a powder that I used to use I was very happy with was Vitavuri N320. It's a very popular powder, but it's also a very expensive powder. I was using, as I recall, 5.2 grains to make major. And the last time I bought it, I think I paid $24 for a pound of it. So N320 appears on this burn rate chart at position 26. Hodgdon clays appears at position 11. So even though both powders are considered fast burning powders, clays is quite a little bit faster. The powders that fall in between are such popular numbers as Tight Group, Red Dot, the now discontinued Winchester 230. So there's quite a little bit of space in between there, just in terms of the number of powders. And to get the same power factor that required 5.2 grains of Vitivuori N320, I can get with 4.3 grains of Hodgdon clays. So I'm saving almost a full grain per charge, and each charge is cheaper because, again, the last time I bought clays, I think I paid $16 a pound. So by using 4.3 grains at $15 a pound versus 5.2 grains at $24 a pound, the per shot cost of shooting is about 1/2 when I use clays. Now, what you run into, the problems that you can run into if you go too fast, is that you have too high a pressure. You get to a limit where you've reached the pressure limit of the powder and the cartridge, and you still haven't reached your velocity. So I think we discussed in an earlier episode how I can easily make a major with a 230 grain bullet using Clay's powder, but when I use a 200 grain bullet, I'm right at the recommended maximum load to make major. And so if I tried to go even faster than Clay's, I probably couldn't even make major. I would get to a maximum load before I got to that 850 feet per second required for a 200 grain bullet, or 740 feet per second for a 230 grain. So just be mindful that there's no free lunch. You've got to remain within the safe pressure limits, but as long as you haven't exceeded that pressure limit, you can essentially go with as fast a powder as you want and still safely make your power factor. Now, another example, of course, is going the other way. Another powder that's very popular is unique powder, and it's a well-named powder because you can do a lot of stuff with it. I believe it was initially a shotgun powder that's been also adapted to pistol use. And you'll probably not get maximum performance in any particular application, but you can use unique for just about anything. I mean, I've loaded 9mm, 45, 10mm. I briefly had a 44 Magnum. I think I loaded that. And you're not going to get maximum performance because it's a faster burning powder than you would want for, say, a Magnum handgun caliber. Something like 44 Magnum, you need a lot of a slow burning powder to get maximum velocity. Now, I don't have any Magnum revolvers, but I do have a 10mm. And I know to get maximum performance from a 200 grain bullet, you need 12 grains or 13 grains of a slow burning powder to get, say, a 200 grain bullet up to 1200 feet per second. But I can get that 200 grain bullet up to 1000 feet per second with 7 or 8 grains of a faster burning powder. But I can't get max velocities because with that faster burning powder, I'll hit the limit, the pressure limit, before I reach that velocity. So if you're kind of in the middle of the velocity range for a given load or a given cartridge, like you are with 45 auto when you're loading to major power factor, major is actually loaded down considerably from what is considered full power. You need a full power 45 load is, say, 825 to 850 feet per second. And there's a lot of powders that will get you there. But to get down to 740, there's even more because, again, you can use a faster burning powder, less of it to get to 740 feet per second. But these really fast burning powders like Clay's will not allow you to get to 850 feet per second with a 230 grain bullet without exceeding the pressure limit. So if you want to get up to 850, use a little bit slower powder. Unique, for instance, or Power Pistol, or some of the other powders that are in the 30s and 40s and 50s on the burn rate chart. And it goes all the way up to over 200. I mean, they've got the rifle powders on here. These are from two different sources, and I like to compare them precisely because no two sources will have the numbers exactly the same. But just be aware of how the burn rate works to maximize your per shot costs by using as fast of a powder as you can, but then also being mindful that you can go too fast to reach the velocity that you want, or if you have a target velocity that's at the top end of what's expected for a given cartridge, you're probably going to have to slow your powder down and use a lot more of it to get those maximum velocities without exceeding the pressure limits. So a couple of other examples for loads. For instance, just again to show you kind of the variability in how the charts work, I noticed that on this particular chart, Winchester 231, which is a popular 45 auto powder, it has been for many, many years, shows up as at position 22 on the chart. Ramshot Zip is number 23. That's another powder I've used for 45 auto. The load data is very similar for the two powders within the 45 auto range for major power factor. They're very similar, not identical. If you start going the other way from Winchester 231, powder number 21 is Scott 453. Powder number 20 is Winchester 452. I don't think they make that anymore. Powder number 19 is Hodgdon HP 38. Well, those in the know that Winchester 231 and Hodgdon HP 238 or HP 38 are the same powder. So how could 231 be number 22 and how could HP 38 be number 19? It seems like they should be right next to each other or just have a single entry since it is the same powder. So that's just an example of how you can see some variation in a chart. Another one is that I'm familiar with is shooting 10 millimeter to make maximum velocity heavy bullet loads. A lot of people use accurate number 9. Heavy charges of number 9. Well, right next to accurate number 9 on the burn rate chart is Ramshot Enforcer. And some people have claimed that they're the same powder. Well, if you look at them, they don't look alike. I mean, even though they're next to each other on the burn rate chart, it's not the same powder. But you will find that the recommended load data is very similar. Within that window where you're loading a 200 grain bullet for 10 millimeter at maximum velocity, the charge weights are very similar, but it's not the same powder. So you can't just say, oh, you know, I've run out of number 9, so here I'll grab the bucket full of Enforcer and just start loading up some more. You still need to be careful with what you're doing. You always need to be careful. But when you hear these rumors that two powders that are similar in burn rate, oh, it's the same thing, I'd be very careful about accepting any kind of recommendation or advice along those lines, and do your due diligence. Build your loads up, starting at 10% below recommended max, or starting at a recommended minimum charge weight, and build up to that max, looking for the pressure signs, and make sure you're safe.